work? Is this my telephone? Yeah. Please don't answer any calls. Okay, so this next section is about loyalty. Loyalty is one of these, beautiful terms that obviously is related to engagement. Loyalty definitely makes brands grow. Loyalty is a driver in terms of profits, in terms of engagement, in terms of making your customers have extraordinary experiences. And what I'm going to try to demonstrate is that there is a P&L, there is an ROI behind grabbing a share of heart of a consumer, of a prosumer, of a prospect. There are certain messages that I might throw out that you have to be at least 18 to hear them. So I imagine everybody here is at least 18, is that right? Yes? Good. So my first question to you, how many of you really love a brand? One brand. How many of you love a brand? How many of you love at least 2 brands? How many of you love 3 brands? Right? And hands start going down, down, down. What's wrong with brands and love? What aren't we doing right? Why is it so difficult to engage, to gain that share of hearts? We've been hearing that part of the problem are products that suck. I think another problem is that brands, companies have spent too much time becoming efficient, optimizing costs, reducing what a consumer really expects in terms of customer service. So at the end of the day, yes, they might have a good product, but if the experience is not there, if the customer service sucks, it's something that we're not going to fall in love with. It's something that we're not going to recommend. And at the end of the day, brand advocacy is built on good products, but especially good experiences. So I always ask myself, to be or not to be a loyal consumer with my insurance, with my telecom, with my bank. And many times it's difficult to renew that year of trust, to repeat that purchase. And I think that's something that happens to lots of us, right? It's something that, on an ongoing basis, we're like, should I continue with my insurance? Or is there a better alternative out there? Definitely the power of brands has decreased to some degree. A brand message in itself is not enough to convince us that, yes, I'm gonna, keep on trusting that brand. We start obviously listening to other people's opinions, to other people's experiences. And if that doesn't hold out the brand's message, obviously we look for alternatives. It's also true that, here's a little diary that I keep every month. Just in this last month, these are 3 different situations that I have experienced where, I wasn't all that amazed. The wow factor was not there. I wasn't even satisfied. And these are problems. These are problems for brands, these are problems for me. And the fact that I don't have a wow or I'm not satisfied obviously entails something which is very important for brands, that I don't renew that policy, and my lifetime value goes from 10,000 to 0 in 3 seconds. So it's very important that when you start looking at your customers, when you start looking at your prospects, that you look for triggers where obviously you're going to satisfy the basics, but you also have to look for triggers where you're going to surprise them, because adding magic to customer experiences makes lifetime value triple. Yet, even though some brands try to add magic, most brands are not loved. Most brands are not recommended. And what's even worse is that most brands still focus on acquiring new customers. They have millions or hundreds of thousands of consumers, clients that are, in their P&L, in their processes, and they, to a large extent, focus on the new ones. They don't focus on the ones they have. And what we'll see now is that the rules that we've always used in marketing have become outdated, and that we have to start reinventing most of these rules, that we have to start understanding that the clutter of advertising has reached a point where we've developed skills that I know how to delete or close the banner on my mobile in less than a millisecond. I know how to not look at a video and just wait for the seconds in order to see the content that I really wanted to see. So brands obviously have that challenge of making an advertising that's more relevant, but especially building customer experiences that build that share of hearts. Also a phenomenon that was mentioned earlier today, 90% of the economy is driven by word of mouth. We trust word of mouth more than anything. We like to listen to opinions of our friends, and it's one of those factors that makes us make a choice. However, please keep in mind that all of these bullets, all of these messages, there is something very important out there, that people love to recommend brands. People, despite the experiences they're having, despite the advertising clutter, despite certain aspects that are not so fantastic in your customer journey, consumers on social networks with their mobiles, they're happy to deliver a positive message when a brand really deserves it. So I think that's incredibly positive, that despite all of these experiences that are not so fantastic, when you do something special, you find that there's hundreds, thousands of people out there that are willing to give you a thumbs up, are willing to give you a second chance, are willing to recommend your product, your service, or that whole customer journey. And something that I find incredibly powerful, and it's something that I try to remind myself every day, is that 65% of new business comes from referrals. Why is it going up and down? Up, 65. A little bit higher, 65 deserves. Sigo? Okay, this is something that is incredibly powerful. It's something that I think we should be reminded every day, because so many times we think that new business comes from, that super duper email that we receive in the morning, or that fantastic billboards that makes us stop our car and read it very carefully. But in reality, new business is coming from referrals. And I can only think of one cycle in terms of building new business, in terms of building a company that is going to be relevant in 24 months' time. It's giving a good experience, giving relevant messages, building fantastic products to your current customers. So, can all of these techniques be measured? Is it possible to really understand that when you wow your customers, when you deliver extraordinary customer support, does that build a more profitable business? There's different formulas out there that demonstrate that when you do that, it pays off. It pays off in your P&L. It pays off in a way that your company really becomes much more profitable. It pays off that you're building a pipeline of continuous, convinced prospects that convert better. So I do think it's important that in our scorecards, in our dynamics of building our future, of building a brand that's going to be relevant and that's going to engage, is that we really focus on loyal customers. So it's time for change. Today we're talking about SoLoMo, we're talking about social media, we're talking about lots of aspects that are very relevant. But I do think it's important that all of these strategies, it's not that content is king. What's king is the persona. What's king is your consumer. What's king is when, at the heart of all your strategies, you put that customer, you put that prospect, and you really make sure that everything you design in terms of marketing, in terms of sales, in terms of customer service, has a special edge, has something special for that customer. So, what would be the KPIs of a company that decided to push social loyalty, SoLoMo loyalty forward? Definitely, the first thing that we have to put on our scorecard is our brand advocacy. I know that a lot of companies, they measure their NPS, they measure the sentiment, but we have to do it even more. We have to take advantage of all the conversations that we're having in real time in the social networks to make sure that our scores of brand advocacy are more scientific. They're more real time. They gain an even more important degree in the scorecard of our business. We have to make sure that it's up there. Another aspect is not trying to optimize our value chain, but it's trying to optimize our customer journey. If the customer journey is optimized and our brand, our company is able to deliver the right value to our customers, for sure you're generating NPS, you're generating lifetime value, you're generating loyal customers. And I think too many times we pay attention to our value chain and we forget that our value chain not necessarily is meeting the requirements or the expectations of our customer. Also, I'm also a big fan that yes, we have to sell. Yes, we have to, generate top of mind. We have to build the awareness of our promotions, of our campaigns, of our products. But I think every single initiative, even though what you're trying to do is, generate 3% more conversions, they should have something special. They should have something where the customer has the chance of saying, you know what? You've added 1 degree of share of heart. You have to make things that build share of heart. Okay? So let's see certain alternatives that companies can build in the next months that definitely go in this direction. Here we have 2 dimensions. In our value proposition to our consumers, to our prospects, we have to find, obviously, rational components that talk to the customer in a way that he understands. But we also have to build a new way of engaging with the consumer, which is much more emotional. Purely rational brands have a more difficult time in building that share of heart, that loyalty, that lifetime value. So I do think there's a challenge that a lot of companies have, which is surprising the consumer with more emotional messages, with more emotional components to the way they sell, they market, they service their customers. Here we have a series of alternatives. I will also say that today, a white paper was published about social loyalty in Spanish. You can find it on my Twitter. The last tweet I launched, it's the link to the white paper. And there you'll find all of these techniques perfectly explained. But I do also agree with the other people that have, the other speakers that have been speaking this morning, of the importance of, for example, customer service, or how to make gamification part of the way consumers interact and relate with brands. And brands that are innovating in these aspects, that are innovating with incentives, with advantage programs, with gamification, are brands that are generating extraordinary results in terms of sales or in terms of NPS. And this obviously is helping them in a period where there's a lot more competition. Of course, we have to, build everything around, the new opportunities of a smartphone. It doesn't make any sense that, any of our strategies don't have a mobile component to them, because we watch TV with a mobile in our hands, because we're at the supermarket with a mobile in our hands, because mobile is something that's always there, even when the first thing we do in the morning. So I think it's very important that both on and off, we try to make our initiatives, we try to make the way we relate to customers to have a spirit of mobile initiative. If we do this correctly, then we're going to be able to, take our company forward. And what are going to be the success drivers? The first driver is that, of course we have to listen, but before we listen, I think what's even more important is that we really have to care. We really have to define what we're going to listen to, and we have to define that based on what we listen to, we're going to have some sort of useful, relevant response to those people that are asking us questions or have some sort of experience which is not exactly fantastic. And I do think that some brands, yes, they're listening, but they're not showing very well that they care. They're not, you can tweet something right now to your favorite brand, and days can go along, and you won't get any sort of response. And yes, it's in their real-time monitoring system, but if you don't get an experience, if you don't get a response, I really think that instead of building brand advocates, you're creating people that are disappointed and that will not renew, will not prescribe, and might even decide to say, you know what, don't trust these guys. These guys are not the guys that you have to deposit your trust and your money. Another aspect that has been mentioned is how fantastic certain brands, certain companies have decided to use social media in delivering an extraordinary customer experience. Social media, from an operational point of view, from a visibility point of view, it's allowing companies to do extraordinary things in communities, doing extraordinary things with one consumer, that because that experience is so fantastic, that consumer shares it with his network, shares it with the people he trusts. So there's a lot of power, there's a lot of opportunity to differentiate yourself in customer experiences in terms of delivering excellent services to your customers and to your prospects. We've also mentioned the importance of content. I think brands that are out there in the engagement, top level, one of the things that you'll find in common is that they have a lot of user-generated content. And user-generated content can be spontaneous, and it happens every day. Every day, people happily, put up a picture or put up a comment. But it's the brands that are doing it best. I think they're really asking their consumers to be part of their marketing, to be part of their selling messages, to give them more and more feedback, to generate more and more user-generated content. And this obviously delivers a fantastic result to brands, because consumers love to see contents that have been generated by other people that they identify with. Real-time on mobile, real-time offline. Embracing real-time, it means that your company has to be able to innovate and has to be able to respond in much shorter time frames. I don't see too many companies that are doing this that often. So I do think here also we have a route to being much more proactive in terms of real-time. Gamification, now we're going to see 5 quick cases of companies that I think have embraced SoLoMo loyalty in a very, very innovative way. But you'll find one common thread is that gamification has been part of their strategy. This is also one of the enormous benefits that I see of companies that have embraced real-time, embraced social media, embraced listening, is that the intelligence that you have in the Facebook insights, the intelligence that you have by listening to tweets and start monitoring who's talking about you, what are their demographics, what are their age, what interests do they have. I think it's one of those aspects that allows the rest of your company to be much more effective in making decisions, because obviously if you understand your consumer much better, you'll be able to design policies, products, campaigns that are much more effective. So here are some best practices. I do think that GiftGaff is one of these UK companies in the telecom sector that did something that was extraordinary. It externalized part of its value chain. It said, you guys, help me with my marketing. You guys, help me with my customer service. You guys, help me with my sales. That was very bold. That was very bold. And making customers be part, very, very powerful. Obviously, it also allows companies to have more flexibility, to reach people that they wouldn't reach necessarily. And I do think that from a loyalty point of view, GiftGap now has a community that is continuously giving customer service to other people. It's continuously helping the company to sell their latest promotion to its network. It's also achieving cost of acquisitions that are much lower. So I do think it's a best practice in terms of being bold and making your consumers part of your value chain in three very strategic areas, which are customer service and customer service, marketing, and sales. I also liked and I don't know if Starbucks, is still here? No? Okay, anyway. I also liked the initiative of Starbucks in terms of making a mayor have special conditions based on the number of check-ins. I think it's a nice way to get people to repeat their purchases, to be proud that you're a mayor of something as fantastic as a Starbucks store. It's something that gives you enormous visibility. It's something that generates a positive vibe around your products. And at the end of the day, giving a free cookie to the mayor, I think it's a cost that Starbucks can easily afford, considering all of the returns that it achieves. I'm also a big fan in this new era of loyalty of social media, that most companies have their hundreds of thousands of emails with information that is very important. You have their names, you have what product they bought from you, you might have their age, you have their sex, you have the last purchase, you have their email, but you don't have a lot of information that is available in Facebook in terms of their interests, in terms of their preferences. And I do think that custom audiences is one of those techniques that certain companies have put into place that allows brands to build loyalty in a more relevant way, because you start mixing your messages with what people really care about, and that obviously helps you in terms of building share of heart, in terms of increasing the possibilities of somebody repeating their business with you. I'm also a big fan of the incentives platforms. Today, building an incentives platform is relatively fast and it's relatively cheap. And making your consumer, broadcast all of the interactions they have with you as a company, as a brand, it's something that's tremendously powerful in terms of reach, in terms of visibility, in terms of generating new business. But it also makes people, want to participate more, want to buy more. And there's a series of platforms out there that allow companies to put this into place. And it's something that, in this case, we have, a food chain restaurant that has done it, and we'll see some of the results that they have achieved in their 6-month experience. I'm also, last but not least, a big fan of what Virgin Atlantic launched in terms of making the whole traveling experience a social, mobile experience that people want to participate in. They want to show off that they're going from one place to another, and that it increased by 15% the repeat business of loyal customers for Virgin, and it also achieved millions of people in their shopping process for their next trip. Okay, so once we put this into place, once we're convinced that social loyalty is definitely a strategy that pays off, what things should we measure? Here, I'm putting out a 9-box model: community, engagement, conversion, intelligence, awareness, sentiment, advocacy, satisfaction, and value. I'm 100% convinced that at least 3 of these boxes, at least 3 of these dimensions are key strategic drivers in all sectors, are things that we should care about. So that's why I'm also 100% convinced that loyalty pays off, loyalty generates returns. And here we have some of the benefits, some of the results that you can achieve by developing a SoLoMo loyalty strategy. It definitely increases lifetime value. It definitely makes people want to participate and share their experiences and generate user-generated content. Something very important in certain sectors is that the repeat business, the frequency of the repeat business becomes much shorter. So that's something also that is incredibly powerful. And brand advocacy, if the pillar of customer service, of customer excellence is out there, and you give the consumer the power to share the customer journey that you are delivering as a brand, you're building a brand advocacy that's much more convincing, and it's much more frequent. So a loyal customer is definitely the best asset that you could have in your company. And with that, I finish, and I thank you for your attention, and I guess I'll be happy to receive any questions. Questions? I'll pick on people. Speedos. Speedos. I'm a big fan of Toyota. Please, and I know that you have a tricky question for sure.
Are you going to talk about rehearse this or not?
No.
I think the only thing I would say, because obviously this is something for us is very important, loyalty, like most other brands. But the only challenge I would put on this as a concept is that when you're a brand that's growing, when you're an established brand or you have very frequent purchases, then loyalty and repurchase may be enough to sustain the business model. But when you're in high growth or you're seeking high growth, then the question is not so much about the loyalty as such, getting that customer to repurchase, but how do you get that customer to refer? And I think this is, at least in our case, is the biggest challenge. So engagement is really a step one for us, but the real objective is to get referral. So how do you think you should approach this loyalty aspect in a different way, whether you're in high growth or you're in a fairly established brand?
I've obviously been thinking about the automotive sector, where, if I'm not mistaken, every 7 years, on average, we change our car. But I do think that one trend that is that I've lived in first person and that I see on a continuous basis is that buying a car is it takes a lot of commitment. The process of deciding, it's obviously not an emotional aspect that today I feel like buying a car. And I do think that in all of that process, the customer, obviously because it has the right tools, obviously because there's valid information out there, definitely does a lot of research, definitely finds the German study of the most reliable cars. But then we also look at people that we think are lookalikes, or the people that we look in the eyes and we say, yes, I'm kind of that person, and we see their experiences with cars. So even though the frequency in the automotive sector is obviously longer than going to the supermarket or going to a Starbucks, I definitely think that regardless if you're growing or if you're in a market that is already more mature, that generating referrals pays off. One, how to make consumers share their experiences obviously is based on good products and good experiences, and then putting a platform out there, own media, or it can be a media, it can be the TripAdvisor of cars, and incentivizing people so that the next time they have to go to the garage to fix something, maybe they have some little wow factor. But if they've shared that positive experience, I definitely think it's something that would pay off. To answer your question, I do think that brands have to incentivize people to share their experiences and to give referrals. It is in our human nature to share, wow, how cool, this brand did something fantastic for me. But if you put a little bit of incentive, you'll generate many more. And I don't think that referrals that have been incentivated are less valuable than spontaneous referrals. In today's world, a consumer accepts the fact that brands are asking people to share their positive experiences. Another question? No? Over here? Okay, well then, thank you very much.